This video will focus on the pedagogy of the student edition. The 11th edition of psychology closely mirrors the AP curriculum. You can find a downloadable correlation within this training video. The text is divided into chapters, and each chapter contains sections, and after a few sections you will find review problems. And, as always, the text follows the 8 guiding principles that are the cornerstone of all Dave Meyer's textbooks. Those guiding principles and goals of the text are listed here. Another hallmark of Dave Meyer's is that he adds over 1,000 new citations to each new edition of his text, so you'll find that this is the most up-to-date psychology book for your students to use. For this course, we'll focus on one chapter to make sure you understand all of the pedagogy and resources for the book. We will walk you through Chapter 7, which is focused around learning. Each chapter opens with an opening story to get students interested in what they're about to learn. David Meyer's writing style is one of the most praised, and he has the ability to connect with his students. You can assign this as pre-reading for the chapter and ask your students to keep journal entries that ask them to apply the story to their own lives. Each chapter is divided into sections, which are denoted by the purple box. The sections are numbered, so the first section of Chapter 7 is 7-1. Each section starts with a learning objective, so your students know exactly what their goal is for the reading. If you assign reading outlines to your students, make sure to tell them to build their outlines around the learning objectives so they are able to use it as a study tool for the AP exam. The learning objectives are revisited later in the chapter. We'll take a look at that in a second. Any key terms that your students should know are located in the margins of the student text to make it easy for your students to flip through their text and use what they need. Some teachers create a word wall in their classroom to make it easier for their students to memorize the key terms, or you can ask your students to create flashcards to use as a study tool. At the end of each section is a feature called Retrieval Practice to make sure students have retained what they've read. You can use Retrieval Practice as an exit slip at the end of class to make sure your students have understood the day's lesson. It also makes great practice before the AP exam. At the end of every few sections, you'll find a review. The review has 2 components, learning objectives and terms and concepts to remember. These are great assignments for your students. At the end of the chapter, you'll find a self-test. Assign this to your students before the end of chapter test as review work and use it during the AP exam review. The questions are focused around each section, so if your students are struggling with certain questions, it should be simple for them to figure out where to go in the chapter to find the answers. Please answer the quick questions that follow this video before moving on to Part 3.